And I think people recognize there's some risk as we go into the March quarter just because of the presence of inventory. I think there's probably more of a focus on gross margins now. We know there's some discounting going on, so that has to be accounted for. We're below the street on gross margins for March. But then there's some other things as well. Things like what's happening with services. We're estimating services to decelerate as we go through the year, and that's been an element of the bull case. In addition, just as you go into the next cycle, we're a little cautious on the next cycle as well. And we think all of those things, the expectations for all those things need to be reset to get a bottom of the stock.
John, for years, Apple's been notorious for under-promising and over-delivering, but this time it feels different, doesn't it?
It's very different. I mean, this was a big miss, the first really big miss of the iPhone era, you could argue, but we don't know exactly how big it was because we don't know what the inventory picture looks like. We know overall what revenue was, but how many iPhones are lined up ready to sell that haven't sold yet? The guide should give us some sense of that. If the guide is weaker than expected, they probably have more inventory. And then on the services issue, I think it's unclear really what metrics to watch in services. There's talk about services gross margin, but I don't really know how Apple calculates that yet. What are the costs that they're counting? And plus, I don't think that total active devices is necessarily the best barometer for services, though that's what Apple's been talking about. Yeah. I think it would be Apple accounts. How many Apple accounts are there? How many new Apple accounts? It's kind of like, it's not just viewing hours and Netflix. You want to know what the subscriber number is. That tells you something about growth. We've got to see how Wall Street pushes on that and what Apple ends up giving.
In terms of how you model services and how you're getting to your estimate for services revenue as well as services gross margin,
right?
How do you back that? I mean, do you feed into that model your own unit assumptions?
Yeah, and Apple, well, and Apple gives you pretty limited disclosure in terms of what's behind that number, which frankly, as an analyst, that's good. Then we can do some work and put that in there. But one of the areas that we're a little different from the street is we're assuming that actually Apple Care, the part of the services business which is tied to units, is bigger than a lot of the street has. We have it at about 30% of the services business. And of course, that is tied to the amount of phones that get sold.
That's the warranty, effectively?
That's the warranty, right. So what's happened with that's actually been a big driver of growth over the last 2 years because the cost for Apple Care has increased. It used to be, went from $99 to $129, now $199.
That doesn't seem sustainable. I mean, I don't know if Apple really, if the consumer catches on to that, you don't think there'll be some pushback? They want Apple, I mean, we've got to show something more than Apple Care, right?
I think it's just endemic of what's happened in general. The price of iPhones has gone up, so the price of the warranty has gone up as well. And I think what we're seeing now is there's probably a limit to how much you can push pricing higher, whether it's the warranty or whether it's the phone. So from here on out, and again, this is one of the reasons why we think services decelerates, is because you've exhausted that ability to raise price. Now it just comes down to units. And listen, they just have to come up with a phone which more people want to buy to grow units again.
And then there's a matter of the iPhone's price. How much of this China issue was really about China? How much of it was Apple specific? I mean, we've had Micron, Intel, NVIDIA all come out and say that there's China problems, so we know it's not just Apple. But did Apple go too far on price? How much will we hear from them color-wise about exactly how they plan to work that out, and about how much of this is about emerging markets outside of China, which Tim Cook alluded to in that letter in the warning, but didn't go into a lot of detail.
Would you care, Chris, if they sold 15% more iPhones at a, lower gross price margin?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about gross profit dollars and net profit dollars, and I know that's the way that Apple manages the business. So that's a decision they're going to have to make. Apple historically has not been willing to do that. However, they've seen themselves as a premium brand, and they price accordingly.
Given the uncertainty around what metrics they're going to give, and given this the first time they're giving some metrics, do you expect the after-hours reaction to be much more volatile because we don't know what to compare what against?
I think that's fair. And, it's the first time, we're not going to get, full disclosure on unit numbers. And obviously that's a big concern right now. But we'll get a little more on the margins.